Legend of Total War here, and today we're going to be going over the patch notes for Total War Warhammer 3 for patch 5.3.0. We already covered a blog about a week ago, but this one here has got a little bit more details, a bit less than I was expecting for patch 5.3, because I was kind of using patch 5.2 as a benchmark. That had to be one of my favorite all-time just patches, because it actually added quite a bit of content and some fixes that I really enjoyed. And this one here, there's definitely good stuff in there. It's just less than I was expecting, that's all. Now, that's not a dig at CA. It's just, if we were to use it as a benchmark, 5.2 being like a 10, this one here is like a 5. It's just about half as much as what I was actually thought were going to get, especially based on expectations they set up in this video here, which I want to show first. So this is specifically them talking about what to expect from the patches. So this is Total War Warhammer 3 dev chat on 6.0 interim patches, what's next. So the first part of this was talking about the DLC, that's already been covered. And this was on the 10th of September 2024. So just want to listen to just this bit here, and then discuss that a little bit, and then go through the patch notes that we haven't already gone through. So I'll just start playing that now.
And we'll kind of filter through that. We won't necessarily always have the capability to do, exactly what people are asking for. So, for example, if people want us to do things like add new lords in these updates, that's probably not going to be something we're going to be able to do. And we'll focus maybe a little bit more on things like, campaign features, fixing up old features, doing some reworks, maybe smaller reworks. Maybe for some of the patches, we'll do bigger reworks, maybe like a race rework if we can. There's going to be quite a bit of variance in these patches in terms of both the scope of them, how big they are, and the kind of content we do in them. And yeah, again, we're going to be player-led. Just because we're not going to do in these updates new lords and characters, that doesn't mean that for old content, there aren't going to be any new lords or characters.
Talking about these things that you're reworking and working on, are you able to tell us anything about what's going to be coming next down the line in the next patch?
So that's a good question. As you noted at the start, we're recording this before 5.2 comes out. So probably what's going to be happening right now in our time, not in the viewers' time, in the past, yeah. We're going to be waiting to see the reception of 5.2. What would be really awesome is to start getting more feedback from players. What is it do they want to see? What content do they want us to go back and fix and update? And if they have even kind of, like I said, we want to do new stuff. So if they've got idea for new little features that they want to see in the game, it can be quality of life features, or it can be something a little bit more mechanical like the deeps, then we can look to do that. So at the moment I will mention a couple of things that are on our list, but the big caveat obviously is that plans might change. So what we're thinking of doing at some point will be a Bretonia rework. I think we have looked at them in the past, but they've still got quite a few things that I think we want to fix and update with them. Most notably, me and Rich always talk about this quite a lot, is the Green Knight. Mm-hmm. He's on our list for sure, along with some other feature fixes for Bretonia. So they'll be coming, I think, at some point. Also Kislev, I'll mention them. We've seen a lot of feedback that people want us to take a look at Kislev and kind of update them a little bit. And then we've also got some other smaller plans. So I think we've got a big rebalance of the ancillary system and a bunch of new ancillaries that we're looking to do in the near future. The Chaos Invasion, that's also something that we've seen a lot of requests for, which is definitely on our list to kind of bring back in some form. Obviously, it's a little bit different now how we can kind of implement it in Warhammer 3 because all the big...
Okay, so that's all I really wanted to get from there. So the four main, I guess, subjects that he touched on here. So this is Mitch, the guy who's actually, I guess, the lead of the custodian team, I guess. So Bretonia rework, I guess that's where I got in my head that 5.3 was going to include something of a Bretonia rework, but he never actually said that was what was coming next. It's just that was something that was coming down the line. So maybe, I don't imagine that there is going to be a patch 5.4, but there might be. I'm not entirely sure, because I have no idea what they're doing. But I wouldn't say it's impossible that a 5.4 would be coming out, because the rumors that I'm hearing, and these are just rumors, take it with a pinch of salt, is that the DLC is not coming in November, it's coming more along the lines of December. So there may be another 5.4 patch late November. Again, I'm just talking out my ass with this one here. Just rumors, no real facts behind it. But you know, we would have started to hear, I guess, some kind of marketing around the DLC if it was coming out in November. And you know, it's getting pretty tight in terms of if they want to get this out in November and do like a decent amount of marketing. But anyway, so Bretonnia rework, then they want to focus on Kislev. They're talking about the ancillary system. That's getting their focus in this patch 5.3, and then the chaos stuff. So I wouldn't be surprised if the topics that he mentioned here, the 3 ones that he mentioned that isn't coming, if they're coming after the DLC. I wouldn't be surprised with that, because I imagine that after this patch here, it's kind of going to be all hands on deck and making sure that the DLC content is working well before launch. Okay, so that's the main thing I wanted to focus on there. I'll leave a link to this one here in the description, obviously, if you want to watch through it all. But that's where my expectations kind of were. I was expecting a Bretonnia rework, but he didn't explicitly say that that was definitely coming. And he also says, you know, plans do change, and yeah, that's understandable. There's also another section to this particular patch notes. There's actually 2 patch notes to this one. So this one here, I'm not going to be going through in a lot of detail, because this is just like the unit balance changes. They mentioned that there's some sort of bug that they can't have their blogs be too big. I went through all of this stuff just briefly, just on my own time, and I didn't really see all that much that was that interesting, apart from Demon Princes will be available now for the Demons of Chaos. That's great, I guess. And another notable thing is that the gyrocopters are getting another big nerf here. Ammunition being reduced for regular gyrocopters and damage output being reduced. Brimstone guns are getting a bit of a buff in terms of their ammo, which is good, because I always felt like the Brimstone guns, despite being a tier higher than regular gyrocopters, actually underperformed compared to them. So this might actually switch them around, make them feel a little bit more like a tier 2 unit instead of like a tier 4 unit, and make these ones feel a bit more like a tier 3 unit instead of a tier 1 unit as they currently stand, in my opinion. And then, of course, the Trollhammer Grudge Settlers, they're getting a bit of a nerf. Understandably so. Not in terms of their damage, but in terms of their ammunition. Understandable. These ones here are super overpowered, so that's fine. Even that one there, I'd probably still get the Gyrocopters and the Trollhammers even after these nerfs, but oh, man, I don't know how much... If you take too much more of their ammunition out, they're not going to be able to deliver enough value in most cases. But they are very difficult for the AI to deal with, which is one of the things that makes them so difficult, so desirable to get. With some exceptions, obviously. Like, if you go up against the High Elves, they're pretty good at dealing with them. Anyway, back to these patch notes here. I'm not going to focus on this one beyond what I've just mentioned there. If you want to check out that, obviously, you can check through the patch notes on your own. So we've already gone through this here in the previous patch notes. I'll leave a link to that video in the description as well, so we're not just covering the same ground over and over again. So this is good. I don't have any problem with this. I don't think it's going to provide a huge amount of gameplay, because I didn't really focus on getting Ogre Mercenaries in the first place in any of the campaigns I played, but it's good. There's nothing wrong with this, but we've already covered it. Then there's the bounties here. There's a little bit of an update compared to what they mentioned last time, in that when one bounty is completed, or expired, or is aborted, it will be replaced with a new one on the following turn. Now, when I look at this image here, I don't see how you can abort it, which is why I went in a bit of detail last time about the suggestion for being able to cancel a bounty. Because, like, if you take this one here, for example, eliminate Quick Head Taker, get 1,500, that's not much. Diplomatic relations with Red Fangs, they're gonna die so quick. This has got to be for Scrag, this one. And then, yeah, of course, meat plus 25 for Scrag the Slaughterer. This is a pitiful bounty. And so giving 30 turns for that, yeah, you definitely, I would, even if it was on my like to-do list to take out Quick Head Taker, I'd probably just try to re-roll it to see if we can get something better anyway. But I don't see any like X here to be able to boot it out. But that being said, the entire thing isn't available. So one thing that I may have suspected is that they haven't actually implemented the ability to abort it yet, but they listened to feedback from the other patch note video, and they're probably implementing it. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was some kind of like just like a little X here or something along those lines, in order to reset it, so you don't have to wait 30 turns for it to come in. And it seems like it comes in as of the next turn, which is good. I think that's a much better system than what we've currently got. The big problem here is the rewards. Like, again, looking at this, camp growth, that's a good one, because that provides a lot of real good benefit. As long as it's still along the lines of about 100 camp growth faction-wide, that's really good. But in terms of this one here, going after Quick Head Taker, this is garbage. So I think they really need to have a look at the reward systems for the Ogre Kingdoms, because these missions still seem super lackluster. I mean, they're definitely making it a little bit more user-friendly to have whichever one available at any given time and be able to shuffle them. That's good, but at the same time, the rewards are just pitiful. Okay, so then there's new magic items. So for this one here, there's a whole bunch, like just mentioned this list here, but I would also just direct you guys to go and check out Mercy the Mad's video, who goes into a bit of detail about the actual items in terms of like the rarity of them, how often they drop. So he did a bunch of testing with an Arcane on the Ever-Chosen campaign, because he's got early access to it. So I'll leave a link to this video in the description as well, if you want to check out information specifically related to the items for that are being added in 5.3 here. So I think most of the Mad's really good with honing in and getting those items, and so that was good. But based on what I saw with this video, because I've watched the whole thing, the Helm of Draeska, let me just see if I can bring that up. It's just back here a little bit, I think, where it shows the details of them just a little bit. Yeah, this one here. So if I just bring this up for a moment, that item looks like absolute trash. I mean, 1% chance of the character dying upon ending turn. The problem is with me is that 1% chance is like 50% chance. You guys know what my luck was like this. Do you remember that Medieval 2 Disaster campaign where I had 2 spies that both had 95% chance of success, and both of them were executed on that turn? So, yeah, I get pretty bad luck in terms of this kind of stuff happening. So if I was to get that item, I wouldn't be too appealed by that. And also wound recovery time plus 10. Oh, that's a long time. And then the benefits are armor plus 20, immune to contact effect, unbreakable, expert charge defense. Those are not great. I mean, if you were making a one-man doom stack, then yeah, unbreakable is really good, especially if they're a flying character. But that being said, this takes up an armor slot, so you're missing out on the armor of destiny. This item here, I would put this at like gray or green at best, not at purple. So it does say though, and most of the Mad does mention it, to those who don the Helm of Draeska comes untold power, yet a sorry fate also awaits. So I don't know, maybe there's like an upgraded version of it that's something that he suspects, because yeah, that current stat is just absolute fucking trash. I would just never equip my characters with that. Death Singer and Doom Singer are both exactly the same, providing regeneration, frenzy, and death blow, I think. Those items seem pretty good. Mad's Map for campaign movement range, that's great. I haven't seen anywhere where the Idol of Zach Along is, so only available for greenskinned, and I didn't see Aldred's Casket of Sorcery there, so that's just wait to be seen with that. And these ones here are just sort of either grey or blue, so they're not unique. So you can get multiple of them. I think in that campaign that Mercy played, he got a whole bunch of, which one was it? Engineer's Knapsack. But it seems like that's the only one that's available for the Warriors of Chaos. So these are campaign dependent. So for example, this one here probably can't be dropped by Chaos if you're playing as Chaos. Okay, moving over. So research overflow. So this wasn't in the previous patch notes, and this is really good stuff because I've had so many friggin' arguments with people on live streams about research overflow. People insisting that yeah, it definitely does overflow, and I just like prove it to them time and time again. No, it never overflowed. So they actually go into detail here with the actual problem. Is like a 30% research rate on something that takes 4 turns doesn't shave a single turn off. But now what's happened is that every single percentage point is going to be worth it, because now whatever extra that you don't use up on the completion of a technology, it will be available for you for the next one. So even if it means multiple technologies have to be researched before you even shave a single turn off, that's still better than none. So this is definitely a good system. Now, some people did point out on the forums that this is something that has been in like every single strategy game of all time, like from Civilization to Age of Wonders 4, just everything has an overflow system. So it is a bit weird that it's taking Creative Assembly this long to implement something like that. But at the same time, you got to give them a break with some of this stuff. I mean, we raked them over the coals last year. I'm just glad that this is actually being done. It's not going to make a huge difference over the course of a campaign for most factions. You might just shave off 5, 6, 7 extra turns off some of your research, depending, of course, on how long you actually play. But this is overall a really good feature to this particular patch, so it definitely gets my praise, because that way, this is basically, it's stopping waste or inefficiency, which is definitely good for someone like me who wants to be as efficient as possible. But yeah, there was mods that have essentially been doing this the whole time. This kind of stuff here, just making a bit more clear about how movement is going to be spent, that's good. I've always been aware of that, and I think most of you guys have been as well, but it's good they're making it a bit more clear. This is good as well, just being as clear as possible so that people don't get confused with what's going on. New unit, the halberd, we've already covered that one, so that's for the grave guard. Already covered that, so we don't need to go into that. Battle map tree cluster update, so basically going through all of these, that's quite a lot of maps that they've gone and changed, but they've also shown some examples here. So before and after. Now, I'm going to be honest, and I don't see how this is better. It's like, here's some tree acne, and here's bigger tree acne. It's just like, okay, you've just made the pimples bigger. How about maybe maybe remove this section of trees, because there's still so much of the map that's just covered in bloody trees everywhere. And that's the case with a lot of these. So even though they said they're sort of addressing this stuff, like this one here doesn't seem massively improved. This one does a bit. So this one has, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pockets of trees, and now it has 1, 2, 3, 4. And the middle is, well, it wasn't the case here. All right, I remember this map here. So this is one where you have like a defensive position up here, and the enemy just like gets slaughtered as they come in. Look how much bloom they've got on that as well. They need to adjust the brightness. I think the adjustment on that map there is not too bad. But at the same time, most of the fighting, I think, happens in this area here. So whatever they've done to this area here is probably going to have very little impact. Again, they've just moved things around. I just don't think this is very impactful. So I didn't think this was necessary, but it's still tree acne. You know, you've just moved the tree acne around and made some of it bigger. It's just not very impressive. Bunch of changes to modding stuff, I guess. I'm just going to glaze over that. So a known issue, apparently there was a limit to how many provinces were in the game, and they've now increased it, so that's good. Some bug fixes. Not going to go over every single one of them. I don't want this to go on for ages, but one thing I do want to go on to is this here. So fix an issue where certain playable factions could not be revived through rebellions after being destroyed. That's great. So most notably, there are a couple of Chaos Warrior factions that can't be restored after they've been wiped out. So if you're playing as Bellicor, for example, there's some that you need to get to fairly quickly. For example, Festus can't currently be revived. Same thing with Village, and I think it is Sigvold is the other one that can't be revived. So if they're going to actually add a revival spot for them, that's good. Also, some of the revival spots don't make sense. So for example, when it comes to Azazel, he actually revives at the location that Village starts off in, and that's largely, I think, because that's where he starts off in the Realms of Chaos campaign. So they just basically copy paste for both campaigns, even though they've got different start positions on those. But that's good that they're fixing that. But it remains to be seen if it actually fixes all of them. Fix an issue where the warband mechanic that prevented Bellicor from upgrading Chaos Trolls units to Bile Trolls. That's weird. I never had that problem, because I played a Bellicor campaign fairly recently, and yeah, I had loads of Bile Trolls. I never had any problem getting them, so I'm not sure what happened there. Maybe it was after I played the campaign, this was an introduced bug. Again, I don't know. But I never had any issues with that. Fixed an issue where the dragon-blooded Shugengen Lord Yin had only one use of the bounce spell, the Enfeebling Foeman campaign. The number of uses has now been increased to 4. That's good. Fixed an issue where... Oh, this one here. This is the one that I've been harping on for probably about a year. Fixed an issue where, when playing as the Warriors of Chaos faction, many technologies requiring active Gifts of Chaos would not consistently work without a clear reason. So... I sort of stopped harping on about it because sometimes it looked like it was fixed and sometimes it didn't, and I wasn't entirely sure. But then I kind of realized what was happening, and it was due to if you quit out of the game and get back into it. So if you're starting up a fresh campaign and you play for like 8 hours straight, then the Gifts of Chaos technology, it works as long as you don't load the campaign up. So when I was doing a live stream of this stuff, it seemingly worked. But when I would go back to my Bellicor campaign, I would load it up and give it a shot, and these Gifts of Chaos just wouldn't work. And I realized because I was live streaming for 8-hour periods, obviously I wasn't causing the bug to occur. But when I'm just playing in my own time, I might only play for half an hour at a time before I gotta go do something else, or close down the game, get back into it, and the bug triggers. So yeah, it was currently basically deactivating them if you quit out of the game and then get back into it. So hopefully that fixes that. Hopefully. Fix issues with the teleportation to foreign regions via Oxyodorous Visions, those old ones. That's good. Campaign AI should now use certain mechanics less frequently to align with intended design, including Book of Grudges units. So the grudge settlers, the AI does tend to get a lot of grudge settler units. So them doing this is actually going to be kind of bad for your dwarf campaigns, because when you confederate another dwarf faction, they're not going to have as many of those grudge settler units. So sometimes it feels like, oh yeah, it's great. I confederated this minor dwarf faction and got a whole bunch of grudge settler units. They're going to have less of those now. Matters of State stuff, Colleges of Magic, and Malachi's Adventures. So one thing that routinely gets sent in as a disaster battle situation is when Malachi recruits his 3 free Thunder Barges. That happens fairly early on in the campaign, earlier than a lot of players, I guess, are able to deal with that easily. So those Thunder Barges being sent at you at like turn 60, hopefully that'll reduce the frequency of that so that they maybe come in a little bit later, giving the player a bit more time to get organized for it. Upgrade skills for Nakai. Yeah, it's some stuff over here that I think is pretty minor. I don't want to go into everything because it is a fairly long patch note with a lot of really minor things, so I just don't want to focus on those. It does go into some AI stuff, like ambushed armies that have retreated are set to be wiped out, will no longer attempt to withdraw from the battle. So that'll be interesting to see. We had a big discussion about that Skaven ambush battle. So what should happen now if we were to go back into that save file and load up that battle is that Archaon should not withdraw from the battle at all, because he'll get wiped out if that's the case. That also should mean that armies in Force March don't just run off the battlefield. They'll stand and fight now. So that's good from an AI perspective. And sometimes it's good for Skaven as well, because you don't get as much meat and loot if you don't kill them all, and sometimes they just run off the battlefield way too fast. So this could be good and bad for your campaigns, depending on how you play about it. But overall, it makes the AI look way less stupid. It was definitely one of those areas where the AI was extremely incompetent, and this is probably going to bring it to the point now where it's better AI than Warhammer 2, because in Warhammer 2 the AI just sits there and does nothing in most cases in ambushes. At least that's how they left it. Fixed an issue where Chaos Warhounds exhibited erratic movement, became stuck behind corners and dominate. Oh, who cares? I don't care about domination. Address an issue where large AI attacking armies on certain maps encounter challenges reforming due to constrained playable space. In these situations, AI armies will now bypass those reform phase and proceed with a more focused attack. I think that if you remember in some of the disaster battles, I've been saying that sometimes controlling large armies seem to make the AI perform worse, and that they would just get stuck in a reform phase. So I think that that's what's been addressed here. So basically, this has made controlling large armies in those sort of situations maybe a little bit less appealing, because the AI is not going to derp out quite as much. Because obviously you want to win in those situations. Well, most of you do. Some of you do. I don't know. I'm talking on your behalf. You tell me. But overall, the AI being more competent in battle isn't a bad thing. I just imagine more of you guys will be sending in disaster battles now, which it's not bad for me. Anyway, so fix an issue where the AI remained idle during ambushes when the enemy was hidden. I didn't see too much of that. I mean, that was definitely a Warhammer 2 thing, but in Warhammer 3 they would just walk off the battlefield. The battle AI will attempt to distribute its units across multiple targets to minimize blobbing in land battles. That's definitely an improvement to the AI, but that'll make certain spells like Dwellers Below less effective if you can't get as many units to blob up. So we'll have to see how, they can put this stuff on the patch notes and it mean absolutely nothing, because it's actual, how it behaves on the campaign or on the battles really doesn't change much at all. So reading it out doesn't mean that this is actually what's going to happen. This is just what they've been told to put on here. So we'll have to wait and see. And then there's a bunch of other things over here. I don't want to go into too much with this stuff. Leadership change with encouragement. Bunch of other stuff. Again, I'm not going to go over everything because I don't want to spend 40 minutes on this one. Is there anything else I need to go over here? Multiplayer stuff, I just want to glaze over it. I don't care about any of this. I think we're pretty much there. Races and balance. So that's, again, multiplayer stuff. Complex stat changes. Yeah, just to do with mass. Few known issues here. Yeah, okay, that's all we want to go in through there. So those are the main things. So that's patch 5.3. Overall, a pretty mid patch. Like I said, if the previous one was a 10, this one here would be a 5. It seems like about half as much content. Because if you think about what came in patch 5.2, you had the deeps added. You had the rework for the cults. You had the whole bunch of balance changes, and of course you had the unusual locations added as well. And I think a lot of that stuff added just tons more content. Plus, of course, the green skin additional units. You got 2 units with that one. Although those are 2 super low tier units, so I don't know if you consider them the same value. But overall, yeah, this is an okay patch. definitely doesn't make me want to go and play Ogre Kingdoms again just yet, especially with the DLC right around the corner. The Ogre bounty mechanic was something that I ignored in the first place and would probably still ignore it now. But anyway, let me know in the comments below what you think of this particular patch notes, whether you agree or disagree with me. Do you think this is mid compared to 5.2? It could be that these guys are just a bit more busy focusing on the DLC and just don't have as many hands on deck to work on actual custodian type stuff. And if that's the case, then I don't have a problem with it. But this one here wasn't a particularly exciting patch. Again, I'll leave a link to this in the description, and most of the Mad's video. Highly recommend you watch this one. He did a really good job on this video. And a link to my previous patch notes where I go into a little bit more detail with some of these other ones here, if you want to watch that. Anyway, that's the end of this one. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Appreciate you, and we'll see you next time. Later, guys.